Good evening and welcome back. Trump has been nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize for the second time, of course. But before we get to that, just credit where it's due, because I call out the BBC a lot, that they've actually decided to do some fact-checking, if you will, about Trump that ordinarily on the surface would seem unfavourable, but then they've said, well, hang on, this isn't actually true, and they're painting him in a much worse light than he is. So, obviously here with misleading, after he's walking away from reporters, he points at a puddle that is a 12-second video trying to suggest that he's a bit confused and befuddled, but he's actually just pointing at the puddle to warn millennials and say, just avoid the puddle, make sure you don't step in it. Very straightforward. Moreover, then they've got a picture showing a boat with a pro-Trump flag on it at the bottom of a lake in Texas, which is false, because it was an older photo which had no Trump flag on it at all. But you got Democratic lawmaker Chevron Jones from Florida who tweeted the picture saying, "Oh, the symbolism of it all." And then it came out that it was fake, to which they said, "Oh, it's obviously photoshopped, but the symbolism remains." But, yeah, no one's believing you, Mr. Jones, I'm sorry to say. But after the BBC have done well there, credit where it's due. Well done, BBC, for actually trying to be honest for once. It's a good job. Long may it continue. Maybe we'll actually see a change in the BBC from its new change in ownership, or it's got a different direction now. Maybe this will be a positive change. We've now got the Trump Nobel Peace Prize nomination, what you need to know. And also with it in mind of the BBC maybe having a different direction, I might have to stop using the BBC because I won't disagree with them so much, and we'll have to go back to the Guardian or the Metro or the Independent, one of those. But for the time being, BBC it is. Blatant, biased, corrupt. So, less than 2 months before the US election, President Donald Trump seems to have something to celebrate. A second nomination for the Nobel Peace Prize. A far-right Norwegian politician. And you were doing so well, BBC. Christian Tybring-Gjedde is a politician for Norway. Yes, correct. Who describes himself as a classical liberal. As in, he wants a smaller government. He doesn't believe in a large, overreaching government. Cool. He disagrees with Islam. Cool, but which sensible person doesn't? And he's against mass immigration because he thinks it tears apart the culture of the country, and multiculturalism doesn't work. This all seems pretty sensible. Even what Angela Merkel would say. I don't think she's far right. So, right, just a sensible politician. Good job. Well done. He also seems to be a bit pro-Russia, so take that with a pinch of salt. But now you know. So, he has put forward Mr. Trump's name for the 2021 prize, citing the president's role in the recent peace deal between Israel and the UAE. He told Fox News on Wednesday, for his merit, "I think he has done more trying to create peace between nations than most other Peace Prize nominees." Adding that he was not a big Trump supporter, he added, "The committee should look at the facts and judge him on the facts, not on the way he behaves sometimes." Christian Tybring-Gjedde previously put him forward for the reconciliation between North and South Korea, of course, a couple of years ago, so he's done a bloody good job. There have been other presidents who have been nominated for the prize, of course, including William Howard Taft from a while ago, Herbert Hoover, and Franklin Roosevelt, of course. And if you were to win, it would also be the same as Woodrow Wilson, 1920, Jimmy Carter, 2002, and Barack Obama in 2009, which I think we can pretty much agree was a mistake. Seeing as Donald Trump has made a record for, I think, 37 years now of not starting a new war. So, well done. Good job, Trump. It seems like you're not actually going for war and you might be going for peace, and you've actually called out the military-industrial complex. Maybe he is actually trying to go for a more peaceful agreement, but I suppose when you come from business, you're not used to just being able to force the law on people, and instead you've got to have them to consent to something, which means they've got to be winning as well, and you can't force it on them. You've got to make it appealing to them. So maybe, actually, business brings about peace, which, hang on a minute, that would mean capitalism brings peace and not communism. Oh no, I think it's all unraveling before our eyes. But Trump, of course, back in 2013, said, Nobel Prize for Peace president, said, I'm really good at killing people, according to Just Out book, Double Down. Can Oslo retract prize? And, of course, seeing as he's commissioned so many drone strikes during his time, Barack Obama, then you would also think, well, this doesn't seem to be somebody who's worthy of a peace prize. And if you go back to the origins with Alfred Nobel, then no, I don't think he'd be very pleased with how it's all gone, considering even the entirety European Union received it just a few years back. I don't think this is quite what it was intended for. Bear in mind that he created it because after creating trinitrotoluene, TNT, thinking that it was good for mining, it was then used a lot for war, of course, and there were false reports that he died, and the newspapers were calling him like the angel of death and that kind of thing, and he went, well, this is ridiculous, so let's show that I'm not dead, and also let's show that I would like peace and the advancement of humanity in a more civilized manner. I'm going to create this peace prize so that I can try and have a better lasting legacy than TNT, and hey, it's worked, and the peace prize isn't the only Nobel Prize, of course, but I think all in all, this Nobel Peace Prize seems to have really gone apart from what it was first intended to do. I mean, there have been controversial nominations before, but in order to be nominated, it doesn't really take much. It's just got to be a high-ranking official basically saying, I think this guy, even if it's a joke, as Adolf Hitler was, of course, nominated in 1939 by a member of the Swedish Parliament, which was reportedly submitted in satire. Well, of course, you'd have to say that afterwards, as it was withdrawn soon after. Well, yes, but you can understand why somebody would recommend that a socialist receives the prize, given that, a few years later, the other socialist leader, Stalin, was nominated for the same award twice, garnering nods in 1945 for his efforts ending World War II. What bullshit is that? Bear in mind that essentially Hitler's halt in Dunkirk in 1940 was just because he wanted to still be at war with Britain so that Stalin wouldn't expect the attack when he then had the attack on two fronts heading east just because he needed more oil for the war effort. And that was the idea of going for Barbarossa as well in order to get the oil fields and oil supplies in order to then keep his army going, because otherwise he couldn't keep it going after 1941 because he wouldn't have enough oil, and that's why they had more tanks than they had fuel for. That was as it was, and of course that didn't work. But ending the Second World War, I don't know about that. You could look into the Warsaw Massacre if you wish, or of course you could look into the prisoner of war camps. German were worse than Russian, yes, definitely. But you could also look at how he was friends with Hitler, of course, or how his efforts ending World War II didn't really help, given that he was still a bit hostile to the West. Only briefly was his help really used, and that was in kind of hopping over Germany with bombing in order to then go to the east side of Germany, refuel, restock up, and then come back, bomb on the way back, so that Germany would be bombed from any direction at any time and they wouldn't know where it was coming from and couldn't defend themselves. That was about it, but then when you get into the end and things like Operation Paperclip, when both the Americans and the Russians are racing for the scientists, then no, they're not really helping. So, very tenuous then. And in 1948, after the atrocities had come out, then no. Really, no. Unless, of course, the idea then was just to try and keep socialism going because it seems that the academics prefer that, which I think you can come at from two angles. One is that the educated masses tend to go for socialism because they're used to being told what to think and not how to think. They got no critical thinking whatsoever. They're just told something, it kind of sounds good, therefore they go along with it. Whereas if somebody looks into it, they then reject it. As we see time and time again, you're leftist as a youngster and more right-wing as an older person, as you'd expect, because you look into it and develop those critical thinking skills because you see the world around you and then think, well, hang on, this doesn't seem to be working, let's look into it, and going, oh, socialism is all a sham, right? And then the people in power, of course, this is no longer trying to help out the poor and the downtrodden, it is just envy for the rich, and basically saying, well, I want power, let's use the proletariat to cause the revolution, and we don't care who we call the bourgeoisie in order to get killed, we don't give a shit about that as long as we get the power. And to be honest, I'm not even sure if they think that they'll be the ones getting it right this time. I think it is far more short-sighted than that, and thinking, well, I want the power, I want to be in control, and that's about it. Not earning it, but just taking it by force. On the flip side, you got somebody trying to broker peace by not taking things by force. So yeah, I think he's definitely a worthy nominee, and a worthy earner of it as well. Should he accept the prize? No, he should say basically exactly that it's become far too different from what Alfred Nobel envisioned it originally. It's a bastardization of its original concept, and what your opinions are from your committee don't really mean anything, and this whole thing has just fallen apart from what it was intended to be. So I reject the nomination, I reject the prize, and go give it to someone else. But hey, given that even Mother Teresa was given the Peace Prize, yes, somebody who thought that everybody should suffer because they'd be closer to Christ that way. Great job. Great job. She wasn't nearly as nice as people make her out to be. But as always, let me know what you guys think down below. Always intrigued to hear what you guys have to say. And as always, until next time, have a good one.